Hello, readers. Welcome back to Reading in the Middle, the podcast that celebrates the humor, heart, and honesty of middle grade fiction. I'm your host, Annisha Jeffries, librarian, kid lit enthusiast, and forever a fan of a great story. Today, I'm joined by the amazing Elissa Brent Weissman, author of Nerd Camp, The Length of a String, and her latest middle grade novel, So Oversharing. Elissa is known for writing smart, funny, and deeply relatable stories that resonate with today's readers, especially when it comes to friendship, identity, and the digital world of our kids growing up in it. This episode, we talk about everything from crafting complex characters to the real-life inspiration behind So Oversharing. It's a thoughtful, fun conversation you won't want to miss. So, let's jump in. Elissa, hi. Welcome to Reading in the Middle.
Hi, Annisha. Very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Elissa, can you introduce us to Hadley and Willow? What makes these two girls the perfect pair to take on the wild world of social media?
Oh, great question. I think part of what makes them the perfect pair is that they're a very unlikely pair. So, both Hadley and Willow are 12 years old, and they are just about to start seventh grade when So Oversharing begins. And they meet backstage at a conference for women in content, female content creators, where both of their mothers are speaking on a panel of top momfluencers. So Hadley is very shy, very introverted. She loves to read. She's kind of a nervous personality, very careful about what she says. And she has been living all of her life basically online for all of her mother's many followers. Her mother is Phoebe of Phoebe and Jay, whose brand and motto is keeping it real about parenting because parenting sucks. So she's kind of posting about all of the down and dirty parts of parenting and posting Hadley and her siblings' worst moments, embarrassing moments. And Hadley really doesn't like that at all. And Willow, who she meets backstage at this conference, her mother is Rosalind, who blogs and posts on Instagram at Moonbeams and Marigolds, and it's pretty much the exact opposite. It's a very filtered, photoshopped, beautiful, motherhood is gorgeous kind of aspirational brand. And Willow is pretty fed up with that because she thinks it's all very fake. Willow is very confident, kind of defiant, a little bit rough around the edges. And these two girls meet and they hit it off and they start comparing stories about, life in the spotlight and being the daughters of momfluencers. And they decide to keep in touch using a private Instagram page. They both think, our lives are public enough. Thank you very much. But on that private page, they are revealing to each other and sharing with each other what's really going on behind the scenes that you wouldn't be able to tell from their mother's accounts.
That's right. You're absolutely right. And I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. But your book, So Oversharing, puts a fresh spin on middle grade storytelling. You're exploring what it's like to be a kid behind the camera lens. What did the idea for this book come from?
Well, actually, so this is I think it's my 11th or 12th middle grade novel. And it's the first one where I cannot take credit for the idea. Actually, my editor at Dial, at Penguin, her name is Michelle Lee, she emailed me a few years ago and she said she was looking for a book about a kid who wants some independence from a mommy blogger parent. And she thought that I would be a great person to write that book. And my first thought was, me? Like, does she realize I'm not even on social media anymore? I used to be, and I haven't been since about 2019. And it turns out that actually that's a big part of the reason why Michelle did think of me. And also because in my previous book with dial, The Renegade Reporters, it's about a group of sixth grade investigative journalists who uncover a digital privacy scandal. And so I did a real lot of research into what's happening online with all of our personal information and our data and data brokers and tracking and selling information and that sort of thing. And Michelle thought I did a great job kind of exploring those issues for a middle grade audience. So I was really flattered to be asked, and the timing was good. And I thought, what was great was Michelle said you can do absolutely anything you want with this idea. There's, it wasn't like, here are the characters or here's an outline. It was just kind of, here's the kernel of an idea I have, and would you maybe want to explore it? And so I took some time and tried to figure out how I might approach it. I started doing some research into the world of momfluencing, and I spoke to a former mommy blogger it was just really fascinating to learn about that world of influencers. And I started playing around and hit upon these two characters, Hadley and Willow, and I wanted them to be very different characters, and then to also, like I said, have their mothers approach influencing in very different ways so that I could come at it from two sides. And the story grew from there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, you're right. One of the things that I thought about with mommy influencers is that some of the children, they don't have a say whether or not they're going to be online or whether their photos are going to be on there. They really don't have a say, and so the girls, Hadley and Willow, they have this like secret Instagram called at uh, uh, when we not
Oh, yeah, it's at
we
We Are Not
we not
Content
not
or
we are
We Are
not
Not
content.
Content, whichever way you
Yes.
want to read it. Yeah.
And that becomes their way to fight back and reclaim their privacy. So why was it important for you to give them agency this way? And what message do you hope readers will take from it?
Well, I think that always in children's books, it's really important. It's crucial, actually, that the child characters and protagonists have agency, right? That they're the ones making their own decisions. They're the ones, for the sake of the story, getting into trouble, but finding their way out of trouble on their own. That might involve asking for help, but they're the ones deciding to ask for help. You can't really have a story where there's lots of helpful, hovering adults who sort of swoop in and save the day. It doesn't quite work for young readers. But it was extra important, I think, for Hadley and Willow, as you say, because you're right. So many kids don't have a say in that sort of thing. And it's the whole thing is, I mean, I'm a parent as well. My kids are right now 12 and 14, and I'm in the thick of it with, just the screens, the battle every single day of screen time and making these decisions about social media or what can they do, what can't they do, hearing what they say their friends are doing, talking to other parents, finding out what their friends are actually doing, which is not often what the friends tell them or maybe are doing behind their parents' backs, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think so many kids would love to, they want to start a YouTube channel or they want to become an influencer themselves. That's, I think, one of the most popular career aspirations right now for
Yes.
kids in this age group, right? But on the flip side, for parents who are sharenting, right, just sharing, even if they're not trying to monetize it, or even if they're just posting some things on Facebook, some photos or updates about their kids, which when I was on social media, I enjoyed seeing all of those about my friends' families, but a lot of kids don't have a say. And I think, for instance, my daughter just had to make an about me video for a class she's taking at school. And she put in some photos of the family and things about the family. And then she showed it to us. And my son, her brother, got really upset that she used certain videos or photos of him without asking him. And he was concerned people in her class will see it. Or she said, no, it'll be just my teacher. And even that he wasn't sure about, so these questions. And we talk to kids a lot about consent, but then we don't always put it into practice. And so I think that especially when you get into the world of these really top influencers who are making not just a living, but making a lot of money and have a lot of sponsors, when you start, I did a lot of research and read a bunch of articles by children of these mommy bloggers who are now grown up, teenagers are grown up, and they're speaking out, oftentimes anonymously, about what it was like growing up like that and how they didn't have a choice. And maybe they were told, well, if you don't want to do this video, I guess we won't have nice things, or we won't be able to pay our mortgage,
Oh,
right? Like this is the parent's career.
oh,
And so when you ask what kind of message I'm looking to send, I think always my answer is I'm not trying to, convey any message, trying to tell a good story. But I hope really that readers come away maybe with more questions than answers, and something that they want to think about, and maybe start a conversation, perhaps with their parents or perhaps with
yes.
their friends or teachers. I hope that it sparks conversations and gets people thinking.
I believe it will. I mean, it's so important and it's so timely. We've been grappling with, uh, the internet for almost 30 plus years. And
Yeah.
with the girls, um, you highlight digital consent, and it's in such a smart and in an accessible way. What advice would you give a young reader who feels uncomfortable with their parents, um, or with what their parents share uh, about them online?
Oh, that's a great question. I guess the main advice would just be to talk about it with your parents, right? I mean, I hope that kids feel comfortable being able to raise that with their parents, and I would hope that parents are willing to listen and not,
Yes.
not kind of brush it away or shoot it down or um argue back. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I would hope that I would say the best advice I could have is just be willing to talk to your parents and about what you're thinking and feeling, and maybe come to some sort of agreement about what is off limits, perhaps, if they're not willing to make everything off limits.
Yeah, I could see your book being a real good book club book, especially for like, you know, um, parents and or moms and kids or just in general, a book club in the classroom with teachers. Uh,
That would be great. I hope so.
wouldn't that
Yeah.
be right? That would be wonderful.
Yeah, and I especially
Yeah.
love kind of parent-child book clubs or multi-generational book
Hmm.
clubs. I think that books can be such a great conversation starter in general,
And
to talk
your
about.
book would, oh my goodness, yes, your book would definitely be one of those, because you really show the tension between, what's real and what's performative.
Mm.
Why do you think authenticity is such a big deal for kids growing up today?
Oh, that's such a great question, and it's such a strange world we live in right now, and authenticity is such a strange word because, um, I think that, as an author, it's unusual that I'm not on social media. Kind of the prevailing notion is that you have to be, as everybody has to be for, um, but I think I get these author newsletters and things from my publishers, and they say things like, "Oh, the key to success on social media if you wanna help build your audience and sell more books is authenticity." But everything online is it's so fake. It's so, like, I mean, even the authentic things are authentic in, like, a bizarre way, right? Like, everything is just very, I don't filtered, or it's just very staged, and this is what I always think about when I think about how bizarre social media is. When my daughter was a baby, I knew someone else who also no, it must have been, yeah, she had her 2nd kid who was just born, a newborn, and online on Facebook, she posted something that said, "This little guy is we're so in love with this little guy, we can't put him down." And then I ran into her on the street, like, later that day, and she looked like most new parents look, like, she looked very frazzled, and she hadn't slept, and her hair was kind of a mess, and she had the baby in a carrier and was sort of jiggling him around and was like, "We can't put him down. He screams his head off if we put him down." And so it just kind of showed me the way. Here online, she's like, "Oh my gosh, we can't put him down," and in person, she's like, "Help me, I can't put this child down." And so it's like, which one is authentic? I don't know, right? And, like, I think the real life probably, but then you'd have someone like Hadley's mother. who's fictional, but there are people like her online who would absolutely be like, oh my God, we can't put this child down online and it's so horrible and we haven't slept. And it probably isn't that bad either. And so I think that kids today, it's always hard figuring out who your authentic self is and being comfortable enough in that's what so much of growing up is, right? And especially
Yes.
being like in that 8 to 12 or 10 to 14 age range, like figuring out who you are and feeling confident to be that person, even when other people might not necessarily consider that person the way you do, or you worry they won't like that person,
Mhm.
or you're not the type of person who fits in. So, in doing that, I'm just so glad I grew up before all of this social media, because doing that
Yes.
plus having to portray someone online who is both authentic and yet acceptable, if not admirable, that everyone wants to be like them. Like, I don't really know how you do it. I think it's really tough.
I think so too. I agree with you. It is tough. How do you want everyone to, you want those followers, right? So how do you
Mhm.
get those followers? Uh, you want everybody to see the best of you, at, you know, to just keep people
Exactly.
engaged. And
Yeah.
so get those get the sponsors. You want to be able
Right.
to make
Yes,
sure
which
you
is a
highlight everything.
different,
And so, yes, there's a blurred line that could take place with that. And I think with Hadley and Willow, you're able to get those two voices balanced. So what was it like balancing those two voices? Did you ever find yourself taking sides with them?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I find the whole thing kind of fascinating, but also, as people can probably tell, I
Mhm.
also have some strong opinions about social media. And so I wanted to make sure if I was going to do this project that I brought in some balance to the story, and that I wasn't, coming in just to preach or to let my opinions overwhelm the story itself. Um,
Right.
and so I really tried to just get inside. I said, this is the story of Hadley and Willow. It's not the story about a larger message or a larger issue. It's about their experiences. And I really tried to get myself inside their heads and figure out how would they be feeling in this moment? How would they navigate? Because the book isn't just them dealing with their mothers or dealing with being online or
Right.
posting for each other. They each have their own stories going on in school, and navigating their friendship things in school as well. And so I really tried to just focus on what each of them was doing. And the funny thing about writing a book with two protagonists and alternating chapters, because the book alternates between Hadley and Willow, is that you're on somebody's side and then you're on the other person's side. And I think that that's a great experience as a writer, and also just for readers as well. I love when you get to suddenly see something from someone else's perspective. And it's something that I strive to try to remember in my everyday life, and that I think we all need to try to remember more, that we if we step outside ourselves and think about something from the way someone else might be approaching it, it can be really beneficial to helping us all get along.
I agree. It sure can. Now, Alyssa, you've lived in the United States, and now you live in New Zealand. How has that global perspective influenced how you write about technology and relationships, especially in so oversharing?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, so I grew up in the US. I lived in the US until 2019, when my family and I moved to Christchurch, New Zealand. And we've been really very happy here. It's a great place to be. I've come to appreciate technology in the way that it helps us all keep in touch. I mean, we moved here, and then a year later the pandemic hit, and
Right?
we were not expecting. New Zealand closed the borders, so nobody could go in or out. Well, New Zealand permanent residents and citizens could come back in if they did a quarantine, but we were not yet permanent residents. So if we had left, we wouldn't have been allowed back in, and nobody could come to visit us. And so, one benefit, one like unexpected bonus of the pandemic was the rise of things like this, being able to do things remotely and Zoom and all of that. And so that has been such a lifesaver for our family. And I know that my kids, it's really difficult being so far away from family and friends, but like my kids still have such strong relationships with their grandparents and their aunts and uncles and everything, even though we live so far away. And that's thanks in large part to technology, which is really, really incredible. Um, and then on the other hand, of course, technology, I think, is dividing us in all sorts of ways, and it's making us, stare at our phones instead of talk to each other and all of that sort of stuff. So it's a very fraught relationship. It's got a lot of pros and cons. And but being in New Zealand, I'm sorry, now I've went off on a tangent. I've forgotten your question.
Oh, I was just saying how has your approach to writing middle grade readers evolved over the years? Especially when writing for because you lived in the U.S. and then now you live in New Zealand with the technology. Uh, how you write in
Yes.
relationship to what's going on. But I think you've answered that.
I well,
Answered it well.
thank you. I will just say that kids are allowed to be kids longer in New Zealand, or at least that's how it feels since we've been here.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's been wonderful for our kids, I think, for our family. And but it has affected my writing in that I still pretty much set my books in the US and have American kids as my characters. And I have to make sure, I hope that I'm still being authentic, there's that word, to what it's like to be, 12 in America today versus 12 in New Zealand, which are pretty different things in a lot of ways. Um, and then just little things like the dialogue. What even within a few months of moving here, I started writing the Renegade Reporters when I lived in Baltimore, and that was actually set in Baltimore City. And then I finished it here in New Zealand. And even I had only been here maybe a couple of months, and I was writing dialogue, and I thought, oh my gosh, no, they wouldn't say this way. That sounds like a Kiwi kid. I'd better change those words back over to how an American kid would say it. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wonderful. See, you answered that perfect.
Oh, thank you.
Now, uh, Elissa, Booklist magazine called your book thoughtful, gripping, and heart-wrenching, a must-read for every kid who has dreamed of being an influencer. What was your reaction to this praise?
Oh, I was so happy. They gave it a starred review too, which was really exciting.
Hmm.
And that's some high praise. So, I was really glad to hear that they found it, moving and were engaged in the story. And I hope that kids who want to be an influencer do read the book, because I think there's a lot behind the scenes that no one would know is going on, that this exposes a little bit of that.
Yeah, you did your research, and so you can really tell in the book. So, congratulations on that starter review.
Thank you. Thank you. I will
You're
say one thing
welcome.
that's making me happy too is it seems like some early reviews, at least on Goodreads, people are also mentioning that the book is funny, which makes me happy because
Okay,
I always hope
it
that
is.
all of my books are funny.
Oh, you know what? If I did not mention that, I want to say yes. I found your book, very funny. It was all the way around. The whole balance was there. You have the whole complete package. So, listeners,
Oh,
yes,
thank you.
your book is absolutely funny. And um, it feel like a departure writing this? Unlike your earlier works like Nerd Camp and The Length of a String.
It does. Maybe not so much a departure as an evolution. I think my
Mhm.
work is changing a bit as kids. I, I think the experience of being a kid internally never really changes, but the experience of being a kid and a human has changed a lot in the past, 15 years or so. It's just changing and changing quicker and quicker as
Yes,
technology changes. And so I've kind of,
yes.
it used to be in my early books like Nerd Camp, which came out in 2011. Um, you didn't want to mention technology in the book if you could avoid it, because technology changes and it'll date the book. And it was easy enough to have kids not really have any sort of tech, or you could get by without, especially at a summer camp where maybe they're not using any. But now, if you don't mention technology, that's weird. Like, how could you not? Technology is such a
Right.
huge part of everyday life. And so I've had to adapt to that. And I think also too that kids are maturing quicker, or Hadley and Willow are 12, but they're not nearly the same. They seem so much older than Gabe of Nerd Camp, who's 10, right? Like they just seem
Right.
so much more worldly and teenager like, which I think is happening more earlier, more comma earlier here now than it was. Yeah, so I guess my work's evolving. I think my work is kind of getting a little more serious too. When I was younger and I was starting out, I just wanted to write the kind of books that I really loved as a kid, which were really funny, fun, school stories, that type of very maybe popular kids books that weren't necessarily the ones the teachers and librarians were trying to get kids to read, but the ones that they were reading anyway. And now maybe I've gotten a bit more literary, or um, trying to make kids think as much as I make them laugh.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like how you put that. And that's true. It's good. I like the way you mentioned evolving. You're right. In the beginning, I guess I'm not a writer, but I would think you just want to have fun. You want to write fun stuff. Yay, everybody's having fun. But as you evolve, as you become a writer, you really just want now it's you want everyone to think, right? You want everybody to like really think about what's going on in our world because it can be a roller coaster. And you have
Yeah.
two children, you have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. So they've actually grown up with this technology, unlike us.
Mhm.
And can't even imagine what that would be like going to school with this technology. It could be, well, for one thing, it would be fun. I would have just had a blast. But then again, it could be challenging. Like you mentioned, your son not feeling it, having his photo in your daughter's presentation. So, that's another thing. All of our information, it's just so much. It can almost be, you could pass out being overwhelmed with the information that flows in and out of our world, right?
Absolutely.
And the social media. But with your book, you balance that so well. It's so wonderful to read. It was just a pleasure and a treat.
Oh, thank
And
you.
yes, and listeners, you're just going to have a blast. You want something fun this summer to read? This is the book. It is just wonderful, and I just give it high praise. I loved it. I loved every
Thank you so much,
bits
Anisha.
and
That means a lot.
pieces. Oh yes. Now, are you ready, Alyssa? It's time for our lightning round, where I
All
ask
right.
you a question and you don't even think, you just answer. But if you go on and we're not grading anybody here. We're just having fun with the lightning round.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
I've always wanted to be on a Gabe show, so this is the closest I will
Oh,
get, I think. Here we go.
you never know. Would you rather have your most embarrassing moment go viral or give up your phone for a whole month?
Oh, give it my phone.
What's something you loved doing when you were 12 that you still do now?
Ooh, read.
Nice. Name a middle grade book you always recommend besides your own.
Oh, there are so many. I will say, I always recommend original Lewis Sacker. So my personal favorite was Sixth Grade Secrets.
Ooh, nice. And that's it. You did
That's
well.
it.
See?
Oh, it's such a
Yep,
short
yep,
lightning
yep.
round. It's
I
like
know. It
lightning.
was lightning. It was like, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Interesting
so,
fact, no lightning in New Zealand. Very, very little.
really,
Yeah,
I
at least
love
not on the
that.
South Island. Yeah. No real thunderstorms. Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, wish they had to mention that to me when I was little. I used to be afraid of thunderstorms. Could not.
Aw.
I still can't
Mm.
stand that crackling, but I would love to have. I'm like, I'm moving to New Zealand.
Yeah.
so I could
Just
not
for
have
that.
thunderstorms. Yeah, just for that, right? Alyssa, if Hadley and Willow, if they could speak directly to our reading in the middle listeners, what do you think they'd say about privacy, friendship, and speaking up for yourself?
I think they would say that you are entitled to privacy and that sometimes you need to speak up for yourself in order to get that privacy. Um, and I think even though they're both very different and have different, very different personalities, they would both agree that it's important to find the right friends, and friends who appreciate you for who you are and like you for who you are and support you no matter what.
Oh, yes. Definitely supporting. That's key. So what conversations do you hope this book sparks at home, in the classroom, or among friend groups?
I hope that, as we said before, I hope that it gets people talking and thinking about privacy in general, right? And what thinking about what you share about yourself, what our relationships to our online lives, I suppose, and what you share about yourself, what you share about other people, what other people share about you. Um, if you maybe want to make some changes to your relationship with social media or with technology, um, and then just putting aside all of that kind of the like, I think it's great that you mentioned friendship and just what makes a good friend. I mean, that's a very sort of that there's definitely a question they would roll their eyes at.
Oh
Oh,
boy.
good.
Sorry about that.
The
You're all
library's
good.
closing. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, I will say, do not mess with the librarian when the library is closing. They will get you out of there as efficiently as they can.
Always kindly. We always,
Yes.
we're always kind with the words. We're trying to, I've
Yes.
never rushed anyone out like briskly, but it's very important to make sure that we have everyone out the door in a timely fashion.
Yes, that has been a universal truth everywhere around the world I have lived. But I know why, because there are people like me who would just stay in the library well into the evening and overnight if we could, so you have a tough job.
And another thing too is for us. Well, when I worked at a branch library, I worked downtown at the main downtown, the main location. So, but when I worked at a branch, I had to close the building. So we had to close at a certain time, or the alarm company would charge us staying over. So, so I didn't want to tell patrons like, hey, 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 come on now, hurry up, we're going to be
Right.
charged. I just say, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please, sure you, make sure you check out your items because we need to close it. Just being,
There we go, you never know what's
being
going
kind.
on behind the scenes. There was a
You
funny
do
story
not.
quickly in the newspaper here in Christchurch a couple years ago. The Central Library downtown, the doors automatically open, like they're on a set schedule to open, and there was a public holiday where the library was supposed to be closed, but something happened with the system and the doors just opened, and all day, people just went to the library and they checked out their own books and they like, the library was just functioning with no librarians at all,
Oh
and
my
nothing
gosh.
bad
That's
happened. It all because here in New Zealand, everybody was respectful. Like, the only thing was, like, some people later complained they couldn't find someone to answer a question or to help with something, but the whole
holy
library all
cow.
day was just
That
operating
sounds a
without
dream.
anyone working the
That's
building.
That sounds like a dream, and nobody vandalized the
No,
library.
no.
People were respectful. It just sounds like another world. Doesn't sound like the world I'm from. But that's a wonderful story, though. I'm sorry, Alyssa. I took you off.
Oh,
We
that's
got
all right.
interrupted by our announcement. But we were talking about. Oh man, I had a great question for you, and then that silly alarm announcement came
I think
on.
we were
Um,
I think we were talking about friendship. right?
Yes. Uh,
Yes.
because I was also mentioning also too that leaving a digital footprint, that's
Mhm.
important too. And young people have to be very mindful of how they present themselves online because it doesn't erase. It doesn't go anywhere. It sticks. And you just
Does.
want to be careful with that. It's so important, what you
It does.
say, what you do.
It's true, and I would say that parents need to keep that in mind as well, because we often we spend time telling our kids that to be really mindful, and then, those videos that you posted or those posts that you posted, this comes up quite a bit, and so oversharing that, parents posted when their kids were really little that are still sticking around and coming back to haunt them now in middle school.
Yikes. Oh, I'm so happy they didn't have that when I was growing up. Ooh,
I know.
it's bad enough we had other stuff, but that right there, I don't think I could handle that. But that's neither here or there. You want to hear about what I had to go through. But Melissa, I just want to thank you again for being on Reading in the Middle and having this wonderful conversation about your book, So Oversharing, which is available now. Please, listeners, run. Don't walk, but run to your favorite independent bookstore. And then also go to your library. It's there, have fun, grab it,
Yes.
and
Leave when
you'll
they're
enjoy it.
closing, but then you can go home and read.
Absolutely. And also I love audiobooks. So uh
Yes,
if it's on
this
an
is available
audiobook,
as an audiobook with 2 fantastic narrators. So
mhm,
yeah, that's another great way to a great option is to listen.
I love that. And that's reading too. I just like to mention that
It is.
parents, educators, that's reading. Listening to a book is reading.
Yes, it
It's not
is.
cheating.
Absolutely. No,
Because I did that.
not
I
at
did that
all.
with The Great Gatsby. When I was in high school, me and my friend, we forgot to read the book, and so we listened to we listened to it on a cassette tape, and we
Perfect.
enjoyed it. And then we watched the movie with Robert Redford, and we were like, okay, this isn't
Mm,
bad.
yeah.
But
Well, I had a friend, the classic story of a friend who I still keep in touch with when she was about 10. She, read a whole book into a cassette tape so that she wouldn't have to read the book, and only when she finished did she realize.
I mean, hey,
Yep.
Oh my gosh, thank you again. You're just so wonderful, and please take care in New Zealand. Uh, you know, um,
Thank you,
don't be a
Annisha. This
stranger.
I really, really enjoyed this, and, yeah, thank you everyone for listening. It was such a pleasure.
That's a wrap on this episode of Reading in the Middle. Huge thanks to Elissa Brent Weissman joining me today and sharing such thoughtful insight into her writing process and the inspiration behind So Oversharing. I love discussing and talking about real life issues middle grade readers face and how Elissa brings humor into every page. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast with your fellow book lovers, librarians, educators, and readers of all ages. You can follow me on Instagram at reading underscore in underscore the underscore middle for updates and extras. Until next time, keep reading, keep sharing mindfully, and keep celebrating stories that meet us right in the middle.